Okay, I'm recording now. All right, so we are looking at the Padlet, which is just a board where you're answering this question of what does art mean for Indigenous people, or what can we learn about Indigenous people through art. There's a plus button down here on the lower right-hand corner. You click that. Once you click that, type in your answer. And then don't forget to leave your name as well. Okay, cool. You can go back and edit yours too. You can also comment on other people's, but it's kind of hard right now because it's bouncing around. Okay. All right, I'm going to attempt to read some of the short ones. Let's see here. Indigenous culture can teach us about their history and important values of society. Yes, good. So it can teach us about history and values. These are things to write down too. Not that they'll, these are things to write down as in terms of, what I would like you to take away from this class today. The quiz is focused on the sections from the study guide, but these are just things that I would like you to take away. So yes, from art, we can learn about a culture's history and their values at the time. Okay, here. The Indigenous culture is enriched by the mystical and colorful. It is an ancestral culture, yes. So ancestral meaning the art is something that's been passed down over time, right? Yes, so it has like a continuous legacy, a continuous lineage, right? Ancestral lineage passed down through families. Good. Particularly, it has an expression in much of art, pictorial, musical, artisan. It is wonderful. Awesome. Okay. Laith said, we can learn about their culture and their way of life from art. Their art can teach us how they dressed and who they worshipped. We can also learn about how they worshipped. Yes, good. So it just shows us, different aspects of their society. Good. It's their history book, it's their picture book, it's their mark. They're really leaving their mark. I believe we can learn about, hold on a second. I believe we can learn about Indigenous people's artwork for religion, styles, and how they lived. Okay, good. So one thing we're really going to focus and see today is style. That Indigenous people did create art that had a very distinct style. And I think like with art history, art history as a field tends to signify different styles and stylistic movements. And those stylistic movements are associated with like a small group of people, right? Like Impressionism, there's like 5 like iconic Impressionist artists, and that's a style. But style for Indigenous cultures is not a select group of people. It's like that entire culture. Everyone embodies that style. That style defines a people, and we can still see that today. So that's something we're going to point out today too. Good. For Indigenous cultures, I think art is a creative way for them to be able to express unique art like fabrics, yes, and the type of designs they incorporate with them. Also woven baskets, good. There can be items of spiritual significance that we have never seen before. Yeah, so art points us to these things that were really important to them at the time. So they can be spiritual. It also tells us about the materials that were important to them. In the chapter, they talk about how gold and silver wasn't necessarily the most prized possession, right? It was often like fabric or jade or chocolate in the case of the Aztecs. So it's cool to see these kind of like how in the modern world you might say non-traditional art forms, but for Indigenous cultures, they're very much traditional art forms of fabric, weaving, all of that. And we all have indigenous heritage from somewhere, right? But today we're talking about the Americas. But I do want y'all to think about your own lineage and how far back it goes, and maybe what is the art or the way that that culture is visually depicted. I think that's something really important to think about. Okay, I'm just going to read one or two more, and then we'll move on for today. Go ahead and keep putting your responses in using this pink plus button on the bottom right-hand side. Let's see, Lito said the purpose of art for indigenous peoples to express their culture, including beliefs and religion. Additionally, they were able to identify certain characteristics, of particular people and or designate them a title. So again, looking at the styles, we can look at the distinctions and trace it back to a certain people in a certain area. So we can say this is a style that the Mayans used, or this is a style that Peruvians used, or the Inca, and really make a distinction with that. Okay, I'm going to read one more here. By utilizing art, there's a representation of color, symbols, and experiences that are expressed externally. Yeah. It could also be with pottery, utensils, rugs, etc. Good. And with color too, you can tell a lot about a culture through color, right? Because they're not going down to Michael's and ordering an acrylic paint palette. They're squishing bugs and figuring out what kind of red that creates from squishing bugs or plants, or they're really creating pigment out of the natural habitat. So that's kind of cool to see too. Cool. Okay, I'm going to move on from there, and I'm going to move to our PowerPoint today. If you have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat. If something comes up for you that you want to talk about, I'm going to read through the rest of those responses after class. Okay, so the chapter opens up with asking you, what is the beginning? And for them, they're wanting to mention, when the first humans were on the continent. So the continent of the Americas. I believe there's a picture. Oh, they didn't include a picture. But the Americas meaning North and South America. So when were humans first on this continent? The Americas, right? And so they're saying 23,000 to 14,600 years ago. Those numbers are kind of pointless unless you really sit and think about how long ago that was. It's really difficult to comprehend. In some classes of mine, I tried to get students to reconceptualize what that time might be, how many days it is, how many hours, how many generations. I think someone did put it in generations, and it was saying that their grandparent could have lived 70 times, and that's how long ago it was. So one generation of child, parent, grandparent 70 times. Anyways, so it's important to kind of sit back and think about how long ago that actually is. So they start off the chapter talking about South America. South America is not necessarily my expertise, but I do want to mention it and talk about it because obviously it's really important. There's a lot of folks around us with South American ancestry, and it is part of the Latin American diaspora. So So the book touches on the Chavin and the Paracas. It talks about how the Chavin culture is one of the oldest in South America. It's a pilgrimage center. It's marked by temples and stone monuments. And a lot of these sites are really similar to Mesoamerica and ancient Mexican cultures. They have pyramids, they have stone monuments, they have a lot of things in common. And that's because these civilizations were all starting at relatively the same time. So it's kind of funny, a lot of people are like, the pyramids first started with the Egyptians. And there's really no research to say who started building pyramids first, because there's different areas around the world that are popping up at the same time, different like civilizations. So I think it's really cool to see, you know, how we were really all able to come together to start making art and start building these structures. So art is featuring animals and the cosmos. The Paracas people are on the coast of Peru. I'm going to show you a contemporary Peruvian artist at the end of today. Let me continue on. The book mentions this stela. So stela is a key word in your textbook, and stela, what it is basically it's a slab that pops out of the ground. Think of it as like a, you know, at a cemetery, it's like a, what's it called when they have those things that pop up in the cemetery that list the name of the person and the you know, the dates that they lived and they died. What is that called?
Tombstone.
Thank you, tombstone. Thank you, Alexander. Oh yeah, other folks wrote it too. Okay. So a stela is kind of like a tombstone where it demarcates an important site. Sometimes things are buried under them, sometimes they're not. But what's significant about them is that they depict different mythological creatures, different gods, goddesses, also known as deities, and they have this very distinct style, right? So does anyone want to speak up and kind of talk about what they see in this style? Like, what is kind of like popping out for you? How would you describe this kind of rendition? What's something unique or characteristic about it?
They were talking in the book that the face itself, if you turn it upside down, it has two faces, different characteristics, kind of like a crocodile and alligator.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of a illusionary in a way. It's depicting two different animals. There's human and animal features. Good. Yeah, so it's really common for indigenous cultures or ancient cultures to fuse human with animal because animals have a very big spiritual significance. So yeah, good. And each animal has its own like story, its own mythology. Yes, they use the term contour rivalry to describe that effect that you were talking about, which is like that you see an image within an image within an image, and it's really an illusion, a play kind of on your eye. Syed said that there's snakes and bird parts. I see how you could say snake. There's like maybe this kind of like tongue swirly here or fangs here. Yeah, good. Oh, little snakes here on the side maybe. Good. These are not implied lines, they are actual lines. This is a line drawing, and that's because the difference is they're not implied lines because they actually like connect, and they actually are a connecting line. But some other words I would use to describe this drawing are just that there's different kind of like curvular shapes, and they do represent parts of an animal like a tongue or a mouth. But they could also represent maybe like, what would these sides represent, do you think? These like swirlies here in the hand. What do you think like the animal might be holding?
Snake, crocodile.
Excuse me. Another snake. Yeah, it could be wrangling another snake.
Bears.
What's that?
Bears.
They could be holding a staff or a weapon. Good. It could also be holding a natural element like a corn stalk or something. Yeah. So all of these things, some are known and some are not. It just depends on which culture you're looking at. For this one in particular, I'm not sure which one it is, but I think it's safe to say like that they're a snake wrangler for sure. Snakes are just very significant. Reminds me of water flow. Okay, good. So the curves can represent water. Good. It doesn't look like he's holding anything. It looks to me like it is a chair and he is resting his hands. Okay, good. He could be sitting in a throne. Very good. Yeah. So these are things we want to look at kind of moving forward. All right, let's keep going here. Oh, here. The detail of this is in your book too. You can look at. All right, here. So this is another artwork. It's a textile. So the one before that we were looking at was stone. This is a textile by the Paracas. And you can see a lot of similar motifs. So you can see the snakes. You can see that this person is fused with this kind of like animal face. I believe they're describing it as like deer antlers. But it signifies a human, I think, because of the clothing. Like they're wearing a t-shirt, right? And this kind of like fanny pack looking element here. But yes, and then this person is wrangling snakes. So yeah, Noela, you definitely touched on a big motif that we see in indigenous cultures. Okay. Another culture that the book talked about was the Mochi. They are from northern Peru, and they existed from 200 BC to 600 CE. So 200 BC is, well, in Christian religion, it's before Christ, but there's another more scientific term. But basically, if you look at the timeline, right, if we're in 2020, you go back 2020 years, that's year zero. And then after year zero, you're counting upwards. So 200 BCE would be 2,220 years ago. So definitely revisit, a timeline, how to count up and back years if you're getting a little confused with that. So the Mochi did sculpture as well. This is an ear spool, so think of it like an ear gauge, something you would wear in your ears. This one is so beautiful, right? It's very ornate. There's gold, turquoise, quartz, shell, and it's like collaged together, right? You can see these kind of little parts all around. And someone mentioned earlier on the Padlet, but color is really big here. Color is being used to show contrast between the different elements. And look how detailed it gets even with the skull necklace. And the skull necklace here, what do you think the skull necklace kind of signifies about this center person?
Ancestral?
Ancestral, yeah. So what do you mean by that? Like maybe he's important, or this person's important.
Power?
Could be a ruler. April in the chat said that this person in the center could be wealthy, right? Yeah, they're collecting skulls. Maybe he's a warrior, Syed said.
Ah, yeah.
Someone of power. And so, yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Noelia, too. Like, could be a ruler, someone of power. And back then, there were kinship systems. So it was important, the ancestral lineage. So, an elder or a grandparent would be considered a royal. And so, yeah, they were put into these positions of power. Not until later did different systems start to take shape where there were like kings and then shamans or spiritual leaders. And then even later on, where they created like militaries with the Aztecs, did they have military leaders, and kind of further broken down. So ancient cultures are grouped by kinship. So that's something really important to remember. His head looks large, showing more knowledge. Okay, yeah, definitely. His head is rather large for his body. Yeah, good.
It's gold.
Mm-hmm.
It's gold.
It's gold, which definitely signifies wealth too. Good. Okay, and so they're saying that this ear spool was found in a royal Mochi tomb. We talked about the different materials that it was made with, and the symbolic associations with the sun's energy and power. So a lot of indigenous cultures create artwork that's connected to the elements. So that's something that's going to be important moving forward. Okay, so let's keep going. Lastly, in South America is the Inca. I think the Inca are probably one of the most well-known to outsiders. The Inca are known for their pyramids. They built big cities. They became the largest empire in pre-Columbian America, which basically means pre-colonization in America. The Inca is most famous for Machu Picchu, I believe. Machu Picchu is a sacred site that was built for a ruler or someone of significance. So when I look at Machu Picchu, I think of like, back then, this was, you know, a mansion on the hills of La Jolla or something. You know, this is definitely one of those fantastical sites that's using the resources around it. But I wanted to show you a video of what this site is actually like. I love watching like drone videos for these things because I have personally never traveled, you know, to these sites. So I have to, you know, learn about them through video. So I'm going to share that with y'all. Has anyone been to Machu Picchu? All right. I'm just going to show this video real quick here. No, never been there. No one's been to Machu Picchu. Wow, that'll be a new one. All right. Okay, so that's our visit to Machu Picchu. So what do y'all notice about the style of Machu Picchu? And what did you see in the video there?
Like Maya or Azteca.
Like Mayan and the Aztec, yeah, a lot of similar. What specifically is similar, do you think?
In the form, the square, the geometric form, the architecture.
Yes, it's very geometric, very planned out, right? Oscar said it's surrounded by terraced fields. So the terraced fields are like the different layers built into the side of the mountain. And those are also geometric, and they also tell us about how this site collected water with these like irrigation systems. Melanie says lots of levels, rectangular buildings, pointed tops in areas. Yeah. What do you think about how some of the structures were built? What did you notice about how the structures were made?
The material in the for the fabrication,
Yeah,
build the buildings.
built.
It's amazing in this time because for the apportage in January is a lot time before the civilization, human civilization is amazing.
Yeah, it's a long time before any kind of like modern building with foundations and cranes and all of that. Leela said builders put together for buildings. Yes, so the structures are built solely out of those, yeah, boulders or rocks. So they were famous, yes, Oscar, for not using mortar or like a paste to like glue everything together. They literally like, you know, pieced it all together, created maybe a binding outside or on top, but they didn't necessarily like glue the rocks together to create these structures. So what this tells you too, what these kind of architectural innovations tell you is that a lot of people lived here, because you need a lot of manpower, right? Or woman power. You need a lot of power in general to build these structures. So that's one cool thing to kind of learn about these places. Okay, let's move forward into Mesoamerica. So Mesoamerica is this region of southern Mexico and Central America that is indigenous, and the three kind of most well-known cultures that come out of this region is the Olmec, the Maya, and the Aztec. And these cultures still exist today, with the exception of the Olmec. The Olmec eventually kind of, maybe, I wouldn't say died out, but kind of like morphed into the Maya. So when we talk about the Maya, we're also talking about their ancestors, which are the Olmec. So the Olmec are most well known artistically for these huge heads. These are the colossal Olmec heads. And as you can see from the photo, the scale of them is rather large. They're made of basalt. So they're made of this kind of like porous stone that you can see has decayed a bit over time with some of those holes in the stone. And they talk about subtractive sculpture, where the process of making these is chipping away, right? So like taking away pieces of the stone in order to create these definitions of the face. So let me just show you in Google Arts and Culture what these look like, and kind of a little bit more about the size of them. Okay, so this is in Google Arts and Culture. This is an Olmec head, and you can see it sitting in the gallery. It's huge. You can kind of see these like smaller cases in the back. And the Olmec heads are mysterious in the sense that we don't really know who they are depicting, like who the portrait is of, but a lot of scholars suggest that it's of important rulers of the time, because these sculptures are actually repurposed from the thrones of the Olmec rulers. So we can only suggest that the portraits are of the rulers of the Olmec. But I think what's interesting about the Olmec, right, is if the Olmec territory is in southern Mexico, and kind of central, bordering Central America, but not quite Central America. And you think about indigenous peoples of southern Mexico, it's like, is there a resemblance, right? Is there a resemblance of indigenous people in southern Mexico to this portrait from the Olmec? It's kind of interesting to see what some of the features are, right? You have these kind of like bigger lips, a wider nose, round eyes, but eyes that are kind of like falling down instead of tilting up. And so this really is a unique discovery in the sense that it tells us more about who the original people of the land were. Were they coming from Africa? Were they coming from Asia? Is it a racial mixing, of like migration over time? So I really love these Olmec heads in that sense, that they're very like mysterious. And, there's a rumor, or not a rumor, but it's funny, there are some scholars who suggest that the Olmec are, have dropped in from outer space, and that's where this idea of like being alien comes from. And whatever credit you want to give that, there's just a lot of mystery of how the Olmecs, the Inca, ancient Peruvians, how they were able to create these cultures kind of seemingly out of nowhere, right? But if you think about the human impulse to create something, if there are people, there's going to be art, right? So anyways, let's zoom in on this head. So Noelia, I wanted to show you this button right here. It says view in street view. That's the yellow little guy that I was talking about. So if you click that, it will take you into the museum. I'm gonna do that in just a minute, but let's kind of get my zoom tools out of the way here really quick. Okay. So here's the Olmec head, and I'm going to just zoom in on the texture here. You can get pretty close, right? Can y'all see my screen? Yeah, okay, good. So if you notice about the texture, obviously it's rocky, it's made of basalt, and like I said, it has these kind of chipped areas, which is from the natural just decay of the stone. It tells us that perhaps water ran over it at some point. And then from these like definitions of the different features, you have these really, really crisp lines, which tells you that the sculptors creating this using the subtractive sculpting technique were really precise, right? Really precise in kind of creating these lines and this dimension, right? Like it comes out of the flatter face, right? The face overall is flat, but it does have these kind of moments of depth here in different areas of the face. There's some discoloration, but really it's not bad. It's like still you can tell it's made of the earth there. But overall, this style is a little more simplistic than the Mayans that we're going to talk about next. Okay, so if I zoom out more and then take you into that street view.
Ah.
Yes, it jumps you into the museum there. So here's the head that we're looking at. If we go around the corner, I'm going to show you all something real quick. This is at the American Museum of Natural History in New York. Over here, this is the Aztec calendar.
I love that.
Yeah, this is called the Tonapuali. This is the Aztec calendar. And you can already see the difference from the Olmec head to the Aztecs, which is thousands of years of time has passed. This has gotten more detail. this is telling us about the passage of time. But you can still see it's using a lot of the sculptural techniques of like chipping away and leaving what's there to kind of like pop out at you. Okay, so let me go back to my slideshow here.
Thank you very much.
Yes, of course, of course. Hold on one second. Oh, I'm looking at the chat real quick. The chat says, is that a replica? That's a good question. I can't tell you 100%. It looks like a replica to me, but I'm not sure. The Olmec head is not a replica, but I'm not sure about the Aztec calendar or the Tonopali. I'm not sure about that. Okay, so after the Aztec, or I'm sorry, after the Olmec come the Mayan. I'm gonna skip over the Teotihuacan. Okay, so the Maya, they are one of the more famous indigenous cultures, of Mesoamerica. The Maya, they peaked around 300 to 900 CE, so that would be 2020 minus 900, so 1100 years ago. What's interesting about the Maya and the Mayan culture is that they still exist today. There's between 7 to 9 million Maya living in Central America today. And important to the Mayan culture is mythology, ritual. Also, there's a big significance of the cosmos. So they have their own like astrological ways of reading the stars. And food. Food has a really important symbolic meaning as well, specifically corn or maize. This is one of the pieces they showed in the book, and this depicts a ball game that's called Ulama, U-L-A-M-A. This is a vessel just showing in Mayan hieroglyphs the ball game being played out. They're working in my yard right now. Sorry if you can hear that. But I love this vessel because it shows the Mayan hieroglyphs at the top, and then it has this this picture in the middle here. So, you know, this is, what did we say? Over 1,000 years ago, almost 2,000 years ago, and the Mayans are creating these really detailed, realistic representations of their people. Not only that, but they have created their own language out of pictographs or different like small pictures that are meant to symbolize not necessarily one letter, but 2 or 3 letters or sounds. And then these pictographs or these hieroglyphs are combined to kind of tell us a sentence or a language. What's unique about Mayan hieroglyphs is that they're not completely translated all the way. So we have this really ancient indigenous language that hasn't been translated completely. So really, really fascinating stuff. The Bonampak murals are a set of murals underneath a pyramid. So you have to go into these rooms to kind of view these murals. But they're really still very much not decaying in terms of like the color. So you have this like really bright blue. The figures are representative. This is a scene where a team has lost in the game of Ulama, and so now it's up to the ruler to decide what's going to happen to their fate. Ulama was a game that replaced this modern sense of war, right, where two sides fight each other to the death. Instead, they played Ulama, and then the team was either captured and sacrificed, or they were captured and used for like slavery purposes. I wanted to show you a couple photos from here real quick. And I know I only have a few minutes, so stick with me here. Here are some of the other murals from the Bonampak mural series. This one is showing a bloodletting ritual. So bloodletting was just you know, this process of like releasing blood from the body. I'm sorry if that gets anyone feeling weird, but it's for ritual and spiritual purposes. And this is a shot that is kind of like a panorama. So you can kind of get a sense of the size here. These are really big, big murals. Here's one of the rooms you walk in. So this is one where it is really decaying. And it's decaying because these murals are in Central America, right? So they're, if you know anything about Central America, it's very wet. There's a lot of rainfall. And also that these sites are really difficult to get through too. So it's difficult for people to get there and kind of preserve these sites. So you do have some of them starting to like decay from the environmental conditions. Not to mention there was a team from a very well-known Ivy League school that went in and sprayed the murals with what they thought was going to be a material that would help conserve the materials or protect the murals, but they actually ended up like taking off pieces of the mural. You can kind of see it right here. So there's a history of, you know, outsiders going in to preserve these murals, but not necessarily knowing how they were made or what they were made of, and ending up really like destroying a lot of the murals there, which is not the case for all of them, but there are cases of that. I think what's interesting about these murals too is you can see skin color, which you don't really see in like the vessel one that we saw. Okay, so before we leave today, I do want to show you a couple of pages I found, or a couple contemporary artists that I found that are relevant to continuing the indigenous legacy of art. So one is Fabiana Rodriguez. Fabiana Rodriguez is a Peruvian artist, and she is kind of using a lot of these same geometric shapes and abstractions to represent her lineage and her people. A lot of her artwork represents contemporary issues, but her style overall, this is kind of her newer style, but her style overall has these figures that really speak to her indigenous ancestry, her indigenous legacy, and how like her ancestors might have depicted her people, right? So let me go down and show you a couple more examples here. So here's some more with like the faces. And so they're geometric, but they're also, you know, kind of they have that curve to them as well. So you can kind of see how she is influenced by ancient Peruvian cultures. So I'll link this so y'all can kind of scroll through. Her new work is a lot different than her old work, but you can still see kind of some similarities. This is a flyer coming out of Central America for a indigenous festival that they had there. And I love this piece because it's very colorful. It shows a lot of the same stylistic characteristics from the other artworks, but it's also representational in that you have like the Mayan people blowing a concha or a shell. You have down here the human animal morphing together, right, to show kind of symbolic importance. But then you also have modern farm workers down here working to save the cornfields, which are at a threat of distinction because of big corporations like Monsanto wanting to buy up the indigenous farms. So this artwork is just so beautiful, has different elements to it. But the color, right, the color and the style are telling you that it's modern. And then I'm going to show you one more before I let you go. Oh, Chicano Park. I wanted to mention that Chicano Park has all this indigenous and indigenous legacy of art that you can see. This is Cuatlecu. So they talked about a couple different mythological figures, Cuatlecu and Coyolxauhqui, that have really amazing stories that tie together the sun and the moon and the stars. And what it did is it really taught people about the world around them. It taught people about eclipses. It taught people about the importance of the sun rising every day. It taught people the importance of calling on the rain god of Tlaloc so that it would rain and provide food, right, for the people. Because at the time, there was famine and there was big environmental events that would eventually kill off these indigenous cultures. That, along with colonization and the introduction of, these foreign diseases, would eventually make it so that the Mayan could not survive. And it's honestly a miracle that there's Mayan people still today and cultures today. So I'm going to post the Google Arts and Culture link to Chicano Park, because you can just go around and like look at the different murals. And if we were in person, we'd be checking these out on our own. But this you can still kind of get up in there and see the different pieces, which is really great too. All right, so I will hang out for a few minutes if anyone has any questions. Otherwise, thank you for today. That was really fun. I'll post some additional links for you to check out just for fun. And then otherwise, I'll see you all on Thursday. All right, bye. Thank you. Let's see here. We have a question quick question about the inquisitive assignment. Should we pay attention to the due dates? Because there were assignments due last. Yes, I changed the due dates for the inquisitive. They were off by a day. So I changed those and they should be accurate now. If someone could confirm that, that would be awesome. Quick question. My inquisitive page does not show any details as you see in the screenshot picture. It's literally empty. So Mohammed, what I would ask you is, did you type in the student set ID number? Because that should link you to our page. It stopped showing us what we finished. Okay. I'm having the same issue. I type in the ID number and it tells me it's already in. Okay. Mohammed, if you could write down and let me know if you put in the student set ID number. If you didn't, it's okay. I can give it to you. I'm going to try and click open your picture, but it's not working yet. Okay, so Dominic, you're saying you're having the same issue. Okay, so okay, let me answer. Okay, so firstly, like, it's alarming that you're not being able to see your progress on Inquisitive. That really is a shame. And I'm meeting with the publisher today about Inquisitive, and they are kind of like a tech person. So I'm going to show them this screenshot that you sent me, Mohammed, and I'm going to ask them what's up with that. We are having a Zoom meeting, so he's going to be able to go into my Canvas and like adjust some things. Dominic, it just started last night. Could someone put the student set ID number in for Mohammed from the Q&A forum? I don't have it off the top of my head. Samara is saying, I completed all my inquisitive exercises, but now when I opened it, it deleted a lot of my exercises. Do you know what I can do with this? Wow, that's alarming. So, I'm gonna look on my end and see what I see. Maybe that will help calm some fears. Because yes, I would be alarmed if that were the case for me too. Okay, so I'm seeing on my end your progress. I'm seeing that there are 39 people who turned in chapter 1.4. There's 35 people who turned in chapter 3.4. So that's good that I'm still able to see your progress. It's just that you can't see your own progress. Is it connected to LMS? Yes, you can. So you can click through the inquisitive assignment from the modules. I believe you can click on the link under important documents. You can click to it from there. Oh, thank you so much, Levo. So here's the student set ID, Mohammed. You want to type that in to make sure that you're following, or that so that your grades are being sent to myself. So Mary, you don't have to send me a screenshot of your exercises yet. I should be able to see on my end. Hold on a second, I'm still gonna look here. Yeah, so I have names of everyone who's completed it and what their grade is. So Dominic, your score, you said you filled it out twice, for chapter 3.4.
Yeah, I did it twice. Once this morning, and then I went back to, like, see my progress, and it told me I had 0%. So I
Yeah,
had to do it again.
I see that too. I see that you have a submitted grade of 0%, but then a current grade of 57%. So
Yeah, it's making it out of 1,500. So I got to the 800 points, and it's not going back to the 800. Like, it tells me, it'll ask me to put in the student ID. I put in the student ID number, and it tells me, like, oh, your student ID number is already set to this. And then it doesn't change at all.
Okay. Thank you for telling me. I'm gonna bring this up with the representative I talked to later.
But yeah, so my things are out of, like, the 1,500 points that it's normally set to, not the 18, or sorry, not the 800.
And so it was usually 800, right? I remember setting it to 800.
Yeah, when I first started doing it, like the first section,
Yeah.
like introduction and 1.1, it was originally set to the 1,500. I hadn't the student ID number yet. But ever since I got the ID number, it was only the 800 points. But now it's back up to the 15, and it's not, like, giving me due dates. It's not showing me, like, oh, what's coming up due. It's all in chronological order, not the order of due dates.
What do you
So
mean by
it'll
that?
say, like it's chapter 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, instead of the how it's kind of out of order, in order, like, kind of. But yeah, it's saying that, like, my grades are, like, 50%, 57%, 50%.
I see that on my end too. Like, I see there are about 6 students with 1,500 scores, and then everyone else has around 800, in the 800 range, and they're getting 100%. So obviously, like, something happened.
Like, I submitted 3.4, I think, just before off, and I went back to check it, and it told me I hadn't even opened it yet.
Okay.
So I had to do it again. I did it again while we were in class.
Yeah. Well, hang tight for now, because at least I can see everything that you're telling me, like what happened, So do your best to kind of just hang tight and don't stress about it right now, because I can always, adjust things manually. And if everyone else is having kind of the same issue, then I'm not going to, penalize the few folks who this happened to. So I will follow up on Thursday with y'all for answers, or maybe even later today. If I get answers, I will let you know. I'm just going to make sure some of the other folks if they're having similar issues or not. But thank you so much for speaking up.
Oh
on
yeah,
that.
no problem.
Yeah,
No
cool.
problem.
Thank you.
I hope to hear back soon. Hopefully this comes to a resolution.
Yeah, I hate technical issues. It makes me mad. So I will find an answer.
Alrighty.
Alrighty,
Thank you
have a
very
great
much.
one.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Okay, Mohammed, it is not showing me the page that requires student ID anymore. It's saying it is connected to LMS. Okay, so there might be a difference between that. So I'm gonna ask the publisher that. Is there a difference between setting the student ID or accessing it through the LMS? And LMS means Canvas. Stands for Learning Management System. Okay, and April, what's up with yours?
So mine on Canvas says 60%, and I've done all of them, and they've all been 100% on Inquisitive, and it says 100%. So
Okay.
how does I don't know if it's just because I haven't done them all, maybe, and it's just
It shouldn't be that way because there are other folks where I'm seeing they have like the 50 points because they got 100, like you said. So can I ask you if your score, your 100% score, did it change recently, or have you kind of been consistent with it?
no. I've been consistent. Literally the night before, I always do it.
Okay.
It's always 100.
I'm just gonna look up your name here really quick. April Lopez. Okay, so the good news is that on the inquisitive side, I see that you have 100%. So that's basically what I'm gonna go by for Canvas until I get this situation resolved with like getting your actual grade reflected in Canvas. Because, so on Canvas, you said 60%, so does that mean your points are like 30 something?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
Kind of just like it doesn't really.
It shows you the percentage?
Yeah, just like the percentage, it says, yeah, just like 60. It's like 11 out of 16, which I'm like, what?
Okay. Because on my end, it shows points. So I was just wondering if on your end, it shows percentage. Okay. So yeah, so like I said, on my page for Inquisitive, like through the Inquisitive tool, I see that you have 100% on everything. So you're good there. I don't want you to stress out too much about the Canvas part yet, because I'm going to try to get that resolved, because I do see some inconsistencies with other people's grades too. So it's not just you. So I'll hopefully get an answer for you for that later today.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for checking. Yeah. Does anyone else have any other questions before I head out? Alrighty. Have a good day.